Today something pretty catastrophic happened to one of my tanks, and basically if somebody were not here at my house when it happened, I probably would have had a bunch of my fish die. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. So yeah, basically I had an issue today with one of my tanks. We're going to get into that in a moment. So I want to talk a little bit about electricity. So when you have an aquarium, when you have a fish tank and you're putting items in that tank, pieces of equipment, power heads, heaters, etc., sometimes every once in a while you will have one that fails. That's what happened today. I had a system fail. I had put a new power head in a tank. Well, it wasn't new, it was one that I had from a while ago. I don't remember where I got it. I don't know if I bought it or I was given the power head, or if I picked it up from somebody for free. Anyway, I had this power head in a box, just a box of stuff, and I decided to switch it out with another one just because it was a little bit of a different design. It was going to keep the snails out of it, the Malaysian trumpet snails, and I just wanted to see how it worked. So I disconnected the one that was running fine, put in this other power head, and it failed. Now before we go into the failure and kind of how I saved the fish and what happened, I want to talk a little bit about putting electricity in a tank. So when you are putting a heater, when you're putting a power head, etc. in a tank, you're putting electricity in a tank. Something goes bad and that system fails, it can be very, very catastrophic. So down here in the fish room, as you guys know, I have a lot of tanks down here. I think down here I've got like 23 tanks or something like that. So anyway, down here in the fish room, there is not one tank that has anything that's electric in the tank. As I kind of go around, I'm thinking about it. Everything is run on air. I have air stones or sponge filters or Ziz filters. A couple of the tanks down here have canisters, but obviously there's nothing plugged in that's going into the water. So I'm not too concerned down here as far as any failure, because everything runs on air. If the air stops, then I can put a backup battery system, or run the generator to put air in the tank. But nothing's going to fail and kill fish because of electricity. So that definitely is a benefit when you are using just air. You don't have to worry about something failing, something frying your fish, electrocuting your fish, etc. It's just air, and again, it's a lot easier to deal with. Now that's fine down here in the fish room. The reason being is that I heat the room, so I don't have heaters going in any of my tanks. The room itself, like right now, if you can see right up there, it's about 82 degrees in this room, and that's just heated by the dehumidifier. The room is insulated, so I don't have to heat the tanks. It makes it really easy. No matter how many tanks I add in here, it's just a room that's warmed up, so it's not really changing anything as far as electrical draw, and I'm not putting electricity into the tank. Now upstairs with my display tanks in the living room, etc., some of those, well actually all of them have heaters except for one. So they have heaters in those, and so they have to be heated, and then they do have other forms of filtration, and they do have power heads, etc. So there is electricity. So anyway, let's go upstairs. Let's talk a little bit about what happened and what I had to do to save the fish. Okay, so now I'm in the living room, and this is where I now have 3 tanks. I've got 3 of my display tanks up here. We've got the Planet tank, we've got the Tanganyika tank, and the Malawi tank. So anyway, what happened today is we were at the museum. I was with my wife, and her and I were at the museum. There was a certain exhibit that I wanted to see. It was about Japanese tattoos, which I'm really interested in. And it was the last day, so we went. It's Sunday today. We went to the museum, and we were kind of walking around looking at the exhibits, and my phone was on silent, but it was vibrating in my pocket. I picked it up, my phone. I saw that it was my my youngest teenage daughter. She was calling, so usually she only calls if something's wrong or she needs something. Otherwise, she's a teenager, they're just gonna shoot a text message, right? So anyway, so she called, and I picked up the phone. She goes, "Something's wrong with your tank. There's a fire." And she said there's smoke, and she had to open up the windows and the door to make the air breathable. So I said, hang up the phone, call me on FaceTime. So she hung up, she FaceTimed me, and what we saw is that it was the Malawi tank. I had put in a new power head today, and just probably about an hour or so before we went and left for the museum, and she said that it was smoking. So immediately through FaceTime, I showed her how to open the cabinet, turn off the power to the power strip that runs power to the hang on the back, and the lights, or I think one of the lights, and then also the power head. So she was able to, and the sump. The sump, there's two pumps in the sump. So she was able to turn off the power, and that cut power to that power head, so we knew that there wasn't going to be any electricity going into that water. Now, there is a second system with an air pump on this tank, so I was, rest assured to know that there was an air stone in there to prevent, lack of oxygen. So, that was running. And then there's also a battery backup. So even in the event of a power outage, that power is going to continue to run for like 12 hours or so, and it's going to power that air pump. So I knew that there would be plenty of oxygen in there because of the air stone, and didn't really know a whole lot else. So afterwards, we came home. And immediately I came to the tank, and I could smell the smell of that burnt plastic, and kind of like, like when you burn something that's electrical, it has that kind of very unique, distinct burning wires and burning plastic smell. So the power was still cut off, obviously, so I pulled out that power head, I inspected it, I saw that there was a hole that was melted right through the power head. So the other thing that I noticed was that the fish were in not good shape at all. One of them was kind of upside down. A few of them were kind of laying down on their side in the corner of the tank. There was another one that was at the surface kind of gasping. And I could tell that there was kind of like a oily, plasticky kind of film on the top of the tank, obviously from the melted plastic. And there was also like little bits of like melted pieces of plastic on the side of the glass. So first thing I did is I stuck a pump in the water and started draining water out of the tank. And because I didn't want to wait for the pump to pump water, I stuck a couple extra hoses in the tank and started siphons and started sucking water right out of the tank and draining it. So the tank was able to drain very rapidly. I did about, I don't know, maybe 85–90% water change, and then put in fresh water and obviously dechlorinated it. And as soon as I put in the fresh water, within 2 or 3 minutes, the fish were active again. They were swimming around, chasing each other, and kind of behaving the way African cichlids normally behave. So if you look behind me, they're all swimming around and don't really have any issues. So the fish are doing well now. They're swimming around, they're active, they're behaving normally. I've been keeping my eye on them for the past couple of hours just to make sure that I don't see any signs of distress or any ailments. I did do a little bit of extra prime, kind of double dose the prime just in case there were some metals that were released into the water, even though I did a huge water change. I did just want to make sure that I detoxified any, heavy metals or anything that were in the water column, in addition to, doing that big water change. I think right now, they're fine. I am going to keep my eye on it. But I guess the lesson of the story is, one, it's very helpful to have someone that's paying attention, that is at home. I truly believe that if my daughter weren't home and if she didn't catch it, all of these fish would have died, because, that power head that was failed would have continued to melt. I could have had some type of electrocution issue in the tank. Who knows? And so anyway, I think that her being here, letting me know what was wrong, and then shutting off the power, she was able to basically save the fish. And then when I came home, I did the big water change, which ultimately ensured that they would survive. So I guess the lesson is just to make sure that you know where you get your electrical equipment from when you are plugging something in and putting it in your fish tank. And this is not something that I've experienced before. I've had other failures before, as far as a heater failing or something like that, but never to where something's like melting in the tank and possibly killing everything very rapidly. So it's going to make me kind of reevaluate all of my tanks as far as those that have anything plugged in inside of them. I might end up just using air stones and removing the power heads. I'm not sure. I have to kind of think about that because there is a benefit to some of the tanks with the power heads. Obviously for the cichlid tank, all that water flow is very helpful. For a couple of my other display tanks, I have sponge pre-filters on the power head, so basically they're like super powered mini sponge filters. So I'm going to kind of think about it for the next few days and see if I can come up with some options on how to maybe eliminate a couple of the power heads in some of my tanks, and then move heaters when possible. That's not always the case though. Like the Tanganyika tank behind me, there's really no option as far as not having a heater in there, unless I did like an inline heater in the back of the tank or something. But even then, you know, it's still, the water's still going to be in contact with the main body of the tank. Now in the Malawi tank and in my Planet tank, I have sumps, so I've got heaters in the sumps, so less of an issue there. So anyway, if you've encountered something like this, please comment down below what happened to you. I do want to read and learn from your mishaps. If you guys have any ideas on what you think I should do to eliminate having power in any of my tanks in my living area, that would be great. Obviously down below in the fish room it's a non-issue because everything only has air in there, but up here it's not the same. I do have, you know, some power heads as I shared before and the heater. So anyway, as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Sorry this was kind of a lengthy video, but I did want to share and talk about what happened in detail. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll catch you on the next one.